Good evening and welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live from beautiful Cape May County, New Jersey, which no one is ever. We are at the peninsula in New Jersey, in Cape May, the real South Jersey, as I like to call it. So welcome, broadcasting live via SHR Media. As well, I have two guests today, as usual. I have Michael Hession, who is with Private Banking Strategies. He's going to talk to us about how to be your own banker. And then I also have Ken Honda, who is, I believe, calling in all the way from Japan, who is going to talk to us about how to make our money happy, how to have happy money. So I'm excited about having those two guests on the show, and I'm excited to be back with you guys live. I know I've been taking weeks off here and there, just having a really busy life, to be honest. And that's why that keeps happening. But next week I have the National Publicity Summit and in Manhattan. So I'm probably going to end up doing in Manhattan, New York, probably going to end up doing another re-air then, because I'm going to be in New York City for the weekend. But after that, I have a bunch of shows stacked up with a bunch of guests, and hopefully we'll be back regularly. So before we go to the break, let me talk a little bit about what is going on. First of all, let me thank my sponsors before I even do anything else. The Tax Mama, aka Eva Rosenberg, John Campbell with Cards for Business Now, and Robert Houston at creditrepair.biz. Let me thank those people before we go on. But going on in the Money Talk news, the e-cigarette maker Juul is terminating their online sales for their fruity flavors. Now, I don't smoke at all or do any of that stuff, so I can't even really, I'm not really imagining what goes on with the Juul, but I guess you can vape these fruit flavors, and they are getting rid of the fruit flavors because they appeal to kids. Now, I will tell you what I don't quite understand about that. Like, what are parents doing? And I'll grant you, I'm not a parent, so sorry, I am a teacher, but I'm not a parent. But I always want, like, how, like, the parents can't control whether or not their kids are using Juuls. Like, I know if it was a situation where I was growing up now and there were such things as Juuls, my parents just wouldn't let me do it. Like, it wouldn't be available. It wouldn't be an option. Just like smoking wasn't an option. So I guess that's why I never smoked. And drugs and all those other things were never options. So I never did them because I wouldn't be allowed to stay in my parents' house if I did that. But I know many teenagers who do all kinds of things, especially as an educator, because I work in a high school. And it's like the kids will tell you that the parents don't really have any control over what it is that they do, which I find to be amazing. And so you have now the government kind of forcing Juul to take their product off the market because it appeals to kids. And that just seems to me to be super backward, if you ask me. I could be way wrong, but that just seems backward to me. Why aren't there some people in charge who are supposed to be kind of controlling that situation? But apparently not. And if you guys are parents and you disagree with me, or you want to explain to me the situation as a parent, how that kind of thing goes on, if you want to say something in the Facey Chat about that, please do. I'm open to those things. But I know kids that smoke more than just Juuls, and they do it like in their parents' house. But a lot of it is because their parents do it too. But it's still weird to me. I don't get that. I do not understand that dynamic. Thank you, Alistair. I don't understand that. So it appeals to kids. So what? Like, so does sugary cereals and stuff like that. Like, you can control that. I don't know. What do I know? I'm not a parent. I can only control what goes on in my classroom. Limited amount of control. What goes on in my classroom. But according to The Wall Street Journal, they removed their fruity flavors from their brick and mortar stores last year and went to online only, which has a little more age control, which you have kids that use their parents' debit cards and Amazon accounts and stuff like that. So I doubt it has that much more control. And according to the Wall Street Journal, Juul's online sales make up under 10% of its revenue. That's kind of incredible. So what's about to happen is the FDA is thinking about banning all of the flavored e-cigarettes, which again I'm not sure is the answer. In other news, Facebook's CEO Mark Zuckerberg was interviewed, gave a rare talk about how Facebook promotes and regulates free speech. And anybody who has been on Facebook for any length of time, Facebook jail is an ongoing joke. So I just find it kind of rich that Mark Zuckerberg, as I stream live on Facebook, I find it kind of rich that Mark Zuckerberg is giving a talk on free speech. I just do. I find it to be rather peculiar, quite honestly. Because, the speech is definitely not free, especially if you have, conservative views, conservative values and things like that. They put people in jail all the time. Jim in the Facebook chat says that parents are out of touch with their children nowadays. I tend to agree with that. You practically have to have a court stenographer in your classroom if you want to discipline a kid in any way, because the parent, it's been my experience, that parents believe exactly what their kids tell them rather than believing a teacher, as if a teacher has an agenda or really wants to have like negative conversations with parents about their kids. Like teachers really don't want to do that at all. I was telling a parent the other day that teachers' goals really are not to ever talk to parents. They can help it. I'm just being honest, and they definitely don't want to have a conversation with a parent about their kid not being well behaved. So it's just, I'm like, no, teachers are people like everybody else and don't like to make more work for themselves. So it's just weird that people think that, oh, that teacher's mean, oh, that teacher doesn't want to, it's bizarre to me because most teachers that I know are just like regular people and don't want to deal with that kind of mess. But anyway, Mark Zuckerberg gave a talk on free speech and how they regulate it, which I think their algorithms need to be updated or something like that. The United Auto Workers Union for General Mills, they are still on strike until they approve a new deal. There's a proposed 4-year contract where full-time workers will be entitled to higher pay and better conditions for temporary workers. GM, however, will be allowed to move ahead with plans to close 3 U.S. plants. The walkout began on September 16th and has so far cost GM $2 billion. That's crazy. That's according to Bloomberg. Wow. According to the New York Times, there are 3 major drug companies and 2 manufacturers that have agreed on a framework for nearly $50 billion settlement over the opioid crisis, which is quite severe in this country. The New York Times is citing anonymous sources on that. But the cases against the drug companies allege that their aggressive marketing and poor oversight played a key role in addiction and prescription painkillers. Now, I don't know if they're referring to the marketing to people or the marketing to doctors that's responsible for that. And I think, listen, I don't know much about addiction. I don't have any addictions. My understanding is that you have to have an addictive personality in order for addiction to be a problem. Like some people have it and then some people just don't. Like you could be prescribed opioids and not have any problem at all. And then some people could be prescribed opioids and, instantly become addicted. it would seem to me that it would be better to figure out how you could determine that, and go from there. But what do I know? I'm not a doctor or a pharmacist or anything like that. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest for my first hour is Michael Hession. He's going to talk to us about how we can be our own banker. And coming right at you is a brand new Ron Edwards notebook.
If America continues to reject biblical principles, she will eventually find herself tossed upon the ash heap of history. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, the United States of America was founded upon the bedrock of both the tremendous principles enumerated in the living word known as the Holy Bible and the insights of William Blackstone of Great Britain, whose influential writings helped solidify in the minds of our founding fathers the true basis of liberty. In regards to the Bible, numerous men of renown testify to its worthiness, and what a blessing it is to both we as individuals and our republic as a whole. The great innovator and horticulturalist George Washington Carver stated, "The secret of my success? It is simple. It is found in the Bible. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." It was Benjamin Franklin who noted, "A Bible and a newspaper in every house, a good school in every district, all studied and appreciated as they merit, are the principal support of virtue, morality, and civil liberty." Wake up, America, and please see the light. I'm Ron Edwards. Please view my new website, theronedwards.talkspot.com.
Ron Edwards, the new voice of America.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Making a living can be tough these days with so many jobs going overseas. If you love numbers and puzzles and want job security, you can become a tax specialist with an amazing 6-month tax course from Tax Mama. Operate your own tax practice locally or anywhere in the world where there are American taxpayers. It's a great way to write off your trips to visit family for months at a time. Everything you need to pass the IRS 3 special enrollment examinations is included in this course. Visit irsexams.school. And if you need more than 6 months, that's okay. Take your time. You're in the course until you pass the exams or until you unsubscribe and reject Tax Mama's emails.
And welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. And my guest for the first hour is Michael Hession. And he has an extensive background when it comes to small business and finance that informs his work as a private banking strategies practitioner. He has 16 years experience as a sole proprietor in the marine industry, another half dozen as a real estate investor, and then several more as a self-directed trader in the options and futures market, and another half dozen as a financial professional. So he brings this wealth of experience to the subject of how money really works. And he's going to talk to us today about how you can become your own banker. So without further ado, Michael Hession.
Hi, Melanie. How you doing?
Hi, how are you? Good evening.
I'm great. Good to speak with you.
Great to speak with you. I gave you a brief introduction, and I'll leave anything out of your background that you'd like to tell the audience.
No, that's pretty good. I think it's a pretty wide range of things, which I think is sort of, like I said, has sort of led me to this and to what I do now. You know, experience it's hard to replicate experience and seeing different things. So, no, it's good.
It sure is. So when I saw this topic of how to become your own banker, I thought that was very interesting because I think that, you know, people often think of banking as always being these huge entities that they need in order to finance things, in order to move money around, and et cetera. And so you're an expert in, among other things, privatized banking. And what is that exactly?
Yeah, so this whole concept started with a gentleman named Nelson Nash, who started teaching this maybe 25 years ago, and actually wrote a book back in, I think the first edition was around 2000, and it's called How to Become Your Own Banker. And he was he had 30 years in life insurance, another like 15 or so as a forester, and he was also a pilot. So all of his life experiences sort of, informed him coming up with this idea that you can actually, by using a very particular type of old school whole life insurance policies, you can replicate and start to create your own financing system, your own quote unquote banking system for cash flow generation, guaranteed growth, no stock market exposure whatsoever, which is a real nice thing about it. So he's the one who really started it, and I first learned about it when I was with my first insurance company, and we were espousing another type of life insurance as a retirement vehicle. And then I heard about this, and I was like, oh, this is so much better. But I couldn't do it because I was a captive agent with that company. So actually, I quit that company because I saw this thing that was really beneficial for people that I couldn't do because I was a captive agent with this first company I was with. So that's how I first learned about it. And it's just, it's banks have, it kind of started back in the 70s. Things started to shift over and away from people holding their wealth in whole life insurance, which they did a lot back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, into government-backed things and Wall Street-backed things like 401ks and all that kind of stuff. You started to see branch banking, where you have these big banks with branches all over the place. And it's just been a shift from that. And this whole thing was, if you learn how to do this, and it can take some time, but you can set your own system up where you draw from it. You have complete control over it because it's a private contract with these insurance companies. So,
exactly. Now, full disclosure, in addition to the rest of my resume, I'm also a licensed insurance agent, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. But it's interesting, even a lot of people in the industry they may have heard about infinite banking, but they kind of know something about it. They know something about cash value life insurance, but it has to be the right company. So some of the biggest ones out there are not friendly to this. They don't let you tap into the cash value quickly. So we don't use them. We use companies that let you do this, and they're all been around for 100+ years, and they're great companies. So you have to know which ones to go with and how to set it up right so it doesn't become a taxable event. So there's a very particular way to do it. So
that's true. Many times when people think about life insurance, they think of in terms of, okay, this is a bunch of cash that will be available to my loved ones should something happen to me, to pay for my final expenses, et cetera, et cetera. Many people don't think of it as a wealth tool or a wealth builder, which it certainly can be, and a lot of people with money do that.
Yeah, because they know.
Right, exactly. They take advantage of that. I don't want to use the word loophole because that's not exactly it, but they take advantage of that knowledge, and they use their life insurance policies as financial tools rather than just thinking of it as, this is something to have in case something happens to me when I die.
Yeah, and I get no benefit from it. And yeah, it's true. And again, that was something that kind of started back in the 80s. You may know this, but your audience may not, that back in the 80s when the interest rates were super high and the market went through a really big correction back in 87, that because interest rates were so high, a lot of wealthy people's advisors said, look, get your money out of wherever it is and dump it into whole life insurance, single premium. Just like you have $1 million, just throw it into a policy. You'll get a huge death benefit, and you'll be able to access a lot of that cash tax-free. Well, the government saw that and quickly said, no, you can't do that. That's way too good for you guys. So they made some rules changes, and that's the thing called the modified endowment contract. And if it's too big, they don't let you do it. So you have to know how to massage it and make it so it stays below a certain level. It's like a ratio between premium is paid and death benefit. So that's partly what we do is you set it up so it never, if you do it right, it never becomes a taxable event. And then so you get your cake and eat it. So then your loved ones will eventually get it, but you can tap into it the whole time. As you know, And then another little piece of icing
Well,
on the cake is
let's back up
yeah.
for just 1 second, because I know
Yeah.
if for the benefit of my audience.
I started running away a little bit.
No, that's okay. I want to back up for 1 second and explain the different. You mentioned a couple of different types of insurance policies, and I know when I was studying for my license, it took me a minute to know the difference between whole life and term life and all that stuff. And you talked about a whole life policy. Can you explain to the audience what that is?
Sure. Yeah, so just like the word says, it means it's for your whole life. So it's as long as you pay your premiums, that contract is good to go. And so it's designed to last your whole life. Whereas term insurance is for a period of time, a term. And, usually they're 10, 20, 30 years is pretty rare. Typically, you'll see 10 to 20 years. A lot of companies, if they offer insurance for their employees, they'll do year-long term insurance,
right,
just to cover the employee if they happen to die while they're working. There's no cash value in term policy. It's really pure protection. And there's nothing wrong with it. Sometimes we utilize it as part of our structure to help avoid that neck level. So that's basically the difference. The one is whole life. It's meant to last your whole life. It's designed that way. And term is just for a specific period of time to, and it serves a purpose, but it's not, it's just no cash value. So it doesn't even factor into the equation other than allowing for a little bit of fudge room when you're creating these things.
Exactly. And it does. And I think one big thing that many people don't understand when they have life insurance through their work is, one, that it's a term life policy, and that it doesn't go with you. That's kind of the disadvantage of having insurance through your job. Once that job is over, that life insurance policy is over too. And oftentimes they may give you the opportunity to convert that policy, but it tends to be expensive when you convert it to your own personal policy if you want it to be whole life. So
yeah, they get a great group rate, if they're doing like 50, 100 people or something. So yeah, a lot of people don't realize that too. And these days people change jobs all the time. It's the new norm.
Right. Exactly. But I know I've run into that.
Third one, if you don't mind. There's another type of policy out there that people probably may have heard of. It's called universal life, and it's sort of a hybrid between whole and term. It's really popular now. They have ones that are tied to the stock market. So the idea is that you can get, some of the growth within the policy cash value can be attributed to growth in the stock market, and those are they serve a purpose, but they aren't appropriate for what we do because they're constructed differently. So that's another type of life insurance. It's called permanent. It's not really whole life, and it's not term. It's kind of a combination.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I was gonna throw Universal out there. I'm glad you jumped on that. I'm glad you jumped on that. So now, how is it that the banking industry, the government, and Wall Street change the equation and not for our benefit?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily like they do what they do. I think the government is made up of human beings. And I don't know if it was a nefarious kind of thing, but it's just, they're always looking, they have to collect their taxes. So if you have something that's really beneficial, and you're not paying taxes on it, they don't like that. So, when a lot of these, they sort of count these 401ks, that was created in the 70s, and these other, types of government vehicles, they're fine. And what financial advisors, typical ones, are taught is that when you share it with somebody, you say, look, you're not paying taxes on it now. You're going to pay on it later when you have to start drawing on it, and you'll be in a lower tax bracket. Well, I don't want to be in a lower tax bracket when I'm 70, and
right.
So and I don't know how it's going to go. And when these programs, anything, whether it's like the 529 plans for college funding, 401ks, even the restrictions they have on personal IRAs, there are always restrictions on it. So another nice thing about what we do is there are much less restrictions. If you have the money, you can do multiple policies and get a lot of money in your system. So it's another advantage of it.
Oh, for sure. So
Yeah.
Now there are different kinds of insurance companies that offer things like whole life policies. Why is what's a mutual insurance company? Explain what that is first, and then explain why that's an ideal vehicle for.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, great question. So what it is back in the day, most life insurance companies were mutual, which just meant that they really were owned by the policy holders. So people would own policies on their lives, their families, and the people running the insurance company were really kind of, they're caretakers. They manage the company. They really have to be very on top of managing what they invest in because they're on the hook for all these death benefits. So they have to be very conservative in their approach. They're not out doing like derivatives and stuff like that Goldman Sachs and all those guys are doing back in 10, 12 years ago. They have to be very conservative. And so those are mutual companies. A lot of them demutualized and went public, which helps raise a ton of cash. It just means that stock companies, Transamerica, Bankers Life, who I used to work for, those are publicly traded. So the difference is they're really beholden to the shareholders, people who own stock in that company. And the difference is those people, they're probably just investors. They may be part of a mutual fund or something. They don't necessarily have any vested interest in the company itself. Whereas a mutual company, because it's really owned by the policyholders, you have much more control and say over it. And the companies that we use have a long history of paying dividends, which we use to make the policies grow over time. And so there's a real difference in there. Any company that's publicly traded, that company its bottom line is the shareholder. And that could be anybody.
And oftentimes when you are meeting with a financial advisor or an agent or a broker, they will typically tell you what kind of insurance company they have. And now they will always tell you the benefits of having that company. They'll say it's very beneficial for it to be publicly traded. Well, under some circumstances it is, just not this particular circumstance that we're discussing now. Sometimes, go ahead.
Yeah. So there can be some instances where a publicly traded company will work for this, but typically we have found that it's not the case. So we use about 6 to 8 different mutual companies for one reason. So they're mutual, so that we know there's no stock market exposure for the company itself. That's the other thing too. So if there's another stock market crash, these mutual companies, they don't have any stock market exposure, so they're not going to lose their shirts if there's a big market correction. So that's a big part of it. And just the way they're structured, where the dividends go back to the policyholders, and since in a publicly traded company, any dividends will go to a shareholder because the policyholders, they just own a policy. They don't get any benefit. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And so, like, if I meet someone and they don't care about IBC at all, they just want to just do, some kind of permanent insurance, it's certainly appropriate to do a universal life or something. It might be a little bit cheaper, but if they really want to learn about how to run their own financing system and operate like a bank, we just find these are the way these companies are set up. They're the best ones to use. And some of the bigger ones out there that people know about, New York Life's a great company, but they are not friendly and open to you using their policies like we teach. They just don't want to do it. And that's their prerogative, but so we don't use them. So we use Ohio National, Mass Mutual, Ameritas, all these companies that have been around great, and they're very highly rated. So does that help?
No, that does. That helps tremendously. Now, I think when you say something like be your own bank, that probably sounds kind of intimidating, right? So, I mean, it does, right? You're thinking banks have all these millions of dollars or whatever. How can I afford to be my own bank? Why in the world would I want to be the bank? Don't banks sometimes lose money? So why would you want to do that?
So, really, if you think about it, the truth about money and when you spend your money on things, there really are only two choices. Either you finance things one way or the other. You either save up and you pay cash for it and you get the item, or you take a loan out from a bank or some other lender and you get the item and then you pay the bank back. So one way or the other, you're financing it. You're either hoarding it in your own system, paying for it, and then that money's gone forever. You get the item, but the money, you never see that. Whether it's $10,000 for you really badly an old used car, or whatever it might be, or if you borrow from a bank to get that same $10,000 car, they get the benefit of that interest. So they front you, you sign your paperwork and they put you on a payment program. So one way or the other, you're financing everything. So the whole point of being the bank is just to begin to stop that or to act more like a bank does, but like your own bank. So you start to create your own system. It's growing at guaranteed rates of interest, which are pretty healthy, like 5-6%. In the cash surrender value, it's a little complicated, but it's another component of these whole life insurance policies. And you tap from them when you need to for larger purchases. You're not going to take money out for your grocery shopping, but for bigger things that you would normally either save up for or finance from a bank. So it's just a way to shift it over, and it can start really small. The first policy my wife and I did was we used a chunk of it. We borrowed from our policy, and we paid off some really high interest debt, and then we paid our system back. So that way, we're acting like a bank in that banks make most of their money by they take deposits, they lend out, they earn interest, and they rinse and repeat, and they lend to each other overnight. They're always putting it to work. So that's really what this is all about, is how you can do that for yourself. And you can start small. It doesn't have to be like this huge thing.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things about the whole life policies is how they gain cash value and how you can borrow from it practically, not totally interest free, but practically.
Yeah, I mean, there is an interest rate, but what we teach is that, and what Nelson really taught is that you really want to pay yourself back, and yes, you really want to overpay yourself back because it's your own system. It's just going to keep growing, and the thing is chugging along. Which is one thing kind of interesting about these policies is that they're designed. The cash surrender value is designed to grow and match the death benefit at some point. Because even though it's whole life and people will pass at some point, there is an end point contractually, and it's moved up to 120 years old now recently because people are living so long. So say, for example, if I'm really lucky, I'm 55 now, and I live to 121. And my policies right now, when I turn 120, the company will say, hey, you know what? Contract's over, here's your money. And they're going to give me basically equal the death benefit back to me.
Right.
That, it could happen. It probably will at some point. But the point is, this cash surrender value is growing at a guaranteed rate, and it has to reach that level by that year of my 120 years old. But the whole time I can tap into it, pay back, tap in. It's all tax free. And
I was just about to ask you what the impact is on the taxes. No, go ahead.
It's tax free because it's a loan. You're taking a loan out from the insurance company with whom you have a policy, and loans are not taxable. Think about any loan you have.
Right.
It's a loan from a private company, which is not taxable. Now, we teach people you have to be careful if you take too much from it and you stop and you let the policy lapse at some point, that can become a taxable event. But so that you have to do it the right way, and that's a big part of what we do is ongoingly teach people how to do it, how to set it up, and how to work it properly.
Exactly. And we're going to that's a perfect place to take a break. We're going to take a break really briefly. And when we come back, I want to talk about the nuts and bolts of how you would go about doing this. If you wanted to do this for yourself, and you're just starting out and you're thinking, I think that I want to start, being my own bank and financing myself. How would I go about doing that? We're going to talk about that on the other side of the break.
Okay, great.
You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. My guest is Michael Hession. He's talking to us about privatized banking and how we can be our own bank. We'll be back in a couple of moments.
Right now, you can get the credit you deserve. Visit MrCreditRepair.biz. Let your expert credit repair specialist remove late payments, charge-offs, collections, even old bankruptcies fast and easy. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Why go anyplace else? Increase your credit score today. At Mr. Credit, you always get a quality service, all at our everyday discounted price. Stop getting turned down for cars, credit cards, or even new homes. Visit MrCreditRepair.biz today. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Your credit repair is our #1 priority.
Making a living can be tough these days with so many jobs going overseas. If you love numbers and puzzles and want job security, you can become a tax specialist with an amazing 6-month tax course from Tax Mama. Operate your own tax practice locally or anywhere in the world where there are American taxpayers. It's a great way to write off your trips to visit family for months at a time. Everything you need to pass the IRS 3 special enrollment examinations is included in this course. Visit irsexams.school. And if you need more than 6 months, that's okay. Take your time. You're in the course until you pass the exams or until you unsubscribe and reject Tax Mama's emails.
And yet another reason to ignore rich leftist-leaning NBA sports personalities. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, I am thoroughly convinced that Democrats, whether rich, poor, dumb, or intelligent, hate the United States of America. Whether it's LeBron James, Golden State Warrior coach Steve Kerr, or San Antonio Spurs head coach Greg Popovich, I find it ironic how Popovich and other rich NBA leftists hate President Donald Trump for having the unmitigated gall to battle against illegal border crossers pouring into our republic and overwhelming our system, and to add insult to injury, building a good wall on our southern border. Yet, at the same time, neither Islamic slavery or black Africans and Christians in northern Africa, or the brutal Chinese crackdown on young Hong Kong residents who don't want to live under the boot heel of communist brutality doesn't seem to bother the hypocritical NBA stars who have a bigger problem with America protecting her southern border than communist Chinese and Islamic brutality. I'm Ron Edwards. Check out theronedwards.talkspot.com for news updates and other great stuff.
Ron Edwards, the new voice of America.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, and my guest this hour is Mark Hession. He is talking to us today about how we can be our own banker and privatized banking. So he was talking to us about what privatized banking is. If you're just joining the show, go back and listen to the podcast. You'll be able to hear that. He also talked to us about why we would want to be our own bank. And before the break, I was asking him about the nuts and bolts of actually doing it. If we decided that we wanted to give this a try and be our own bank, how would we go about attempting that? So how would that work, Mr. Hession?
Okay, yes, it's Michael, by the way.
Oh, what did I call you? What did I say? Oh, Michael. Just call you Michael.
Okay.
I thought I called
Michael the first time. It's okay.
Listen, I thought I might have called you some other person's name. It's not beyond me. Trust me.
It's okay.
Michael,
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So the way we do it, because a lot of this, because nobody ever wakes up thinking, oh, I think I'll start operating like a bank does. First of all, most people, they kind of know to some level or other that they're being kind of screwed over, to put it politely or impolitely, to some way. They by the banks and lending institutions that we are in essence their leverage, and we don't really have any choice in the matter. So there's a big sort of a mind shift is in order for a lot of people. It was for me. I mean, the first time I heard about it, I think because I had some familiarity with how life insurance could be really beneficial for growth and tax purposes, when I first heard that podcast, 6-7 years ago, I was like, oh, I kind of get that. But, since then I've read Nelson Nash's book probably 4 or 5 times. I've got 7 of these policies myself between my wife and I and my daughter as part of our system. So it takes a little bit of doing. I think one of the best things that I can recommend is that through our website, my mentor and my other senior partner, they wrote a really great free ebook that you can access through our website. You can read in an hour, and it gives it's kind of like takes Nelson's Becoming Your Own Banker book and just brings it down to a more digestible sort of, to get your mind going, oh, I can do that, really? I think that's a great way to start, because you have to start to shift your thinking a little bit, because all the information out there is max out your 401k, do 529s, blah blah blah, and you don't have to do that stuff, but it takes a mind shift. So that's a great way. This is a book that it's called, I love the word, it's How to Grow Rich with the Secret the Banks Don't Want You to Know.
Ooh,
and
okay.
And it can, it's 60 pages. I know some people don't like to read, but I promise you, if you just take an hour out, you'll go, wow, this is really incredible. So that's a great way. You just go to the website, a little window will pop up, name and email, and we'll send it right to you. Give it a read, and then you can contact us, and we can have a conversation. There's definitely a process here. It's not just selling a life insurance policy. We want to make sure it's done correctly for the benefit of everybody who's interested in it.
Right, and there really are a million different ways. I mean, you should definitely contact the guys at privatebankingstrategies.com, or if you already have an advisor, you need to talk to them about it, because there's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah, but I would, if you have an advisor, that's great, but just be mindful that there are a lot of advisors out there who have no clue about this. People in whatever specialty it is, and this is not to negate what they've learned, not at all. I don't deal with stocks at all. I did trading. I was enough, and I get some people love being in the stock market, and that's fine. That's not what this is. But there are a lot of advisors out there who don't know anything about this, so they may go, "Oh, you can't do that," or no, you want to be fully vested in the market. So just be aware of that. That you could get some pushback just because they don't know. Another kind of cool thing, I think, is that when we set these up properly to really help people be able to access their cash value quickly, like usually after 30 days, like we did when I mentioned before in our first policy, where after 30 days we took a chunk of money, paid off some super high interest credit card debt, and then that was done, and then we just paid ourselves back. Is that you have to do it right, and we actually take a hit financially in our commissions from the companies by setting up the right way for our clients. And I love making money as much as anybody, but I love that part of it too. It's like, by doing the right thing, we actually we're putting them in the best possible light to take care of them and their family, and it's fine. We're fine with it because it's the right thing to do. And some advisors won't want to do that. So that's all. Just a little word of caution. But read our book. We're happy to help out, and you never know. Sometimes a professional out there might go, "Wow, I could do this too." But my mentor, Vance, who's been in the financial services for 40 plus years, was your typical, doing mutual funds, had a very thriving business, managing assets. And he learned about this about 12 years ago, and you'll see in the book, he goes, "I got mad," because he was like, "I can do that for my clients." I had no idea. So the book's a great way to start. And if you want to go through that process further, we do a free consultation where we can actually, because of all the guarantees within these policies, we can look at your situation, what's your debt, all that stuff, and show you in 8 years how this could work for you. And it's an eye-opening process. So
now
that's kind of how.
And it is. It sounds like it definitely is. So how does this vehicle compare to, say, something similar like an annuity? How would you?
So an annuity, as you know, is also an insurance product. Annuities typically, what people will do with an annuity is they'll have a larger chunk of money, and maybe they have some money in a CD in a bank, and it's earning next to nothing, and they have very little control over it, and maybe every 3 years they can change out of it. So instead, you can stick it into an annuity through an insurance company, and some are tied to market growth, where it can be, its gains can be attributed to growth in the S&P 500, for example. And they're great. They serve a great purpose for some things. The problem with them is that you have very little access to it in the early years without paying penalties. Typically what they'll do is, say if I have $100,000 and I stick it into an annuity, if I try to take anything out of it, they'll usually let you take a percentage of it out, maybe up to 10%. But if I really want to, say if a great real estate opportunity comes up in year 2 and I want to take out $75,000, I'll pay a penalty, because they by giving you it's like a long-term thing, and you do pay a penalty by taking it out sooner rather than later. With what we do, there really isn't. Once you set it up, it's just different. And one other thing I will say about an annuity, there is no underwriting. So if someone is really unhealthy and can't get life insurance, an annuity can be a good solution if they can't do private banking, because it's just a moving money from one thing to another. So
right, because can you get that just brought another question to my mind when you said, in case you're not in good health and you're going to have trouble getting a whole life policy if you're not in, I won't want to say pristine health, but if you're not in great health, then it might not be a good option.
Actually, that's actually not true. You just have to be insurable. Like for me, I'm pretty healthy, but I got standard. I'm on 3 different medications, and even how we do it, we'll send the applications to 4 or 5 of our companies, because they don't always. In my case, I think 1 or 2 of them they declined me because I had sleep apnea and it wasn't being handled yet. But 2 other ones said, sure, you're good for standard. So you never know. And it almost doesn't matter, because there certainly will be some people who just won't be insurable. But you'd be surprised. That you can get if you're reasonably healthy. You don't have to be, like super duper healthy and nothing wrong with you at all. That's actually not the case. It's just if you really have issues, and they're not being handled, or you just had a heart attack or something like that. But the other great thing is that you can, for people who may already have some life insurance, you can do policies on your children. Like I mentioned, we have a policy on my child, and so she's the insured. We own it, so we're using it as part of our system. I'm showing her how it works, and eventually I'll hand the ownership over to her, and she'll have this. She's 20 now, but in 20 years, this could be like a $1 million financing cash flow vehicle for her that she can tap into tax free for the rest of her life. So it becomes there are ways you can implement these into your system where the insured is someone else, as long as it's a family member, a spouse, a child, grandchild, that kind of thing.
Now, I was going to ask, is there a reciprocal to that? Would she have been able to get a policy on you?
That's a good question. I don't know. If in 20 years, if she wanted to, I'll look into that. I kind of doubt it. Usually it always goes the other way.
Right.
And one thing that the insurance companies won't do, if you don't have any life insurance,
right,
they're not going to let you write $1 million policy on your kid, because it's not appropriate.
Right,
so,
exactly. That is a good way to put it. It's not appropriate.
But you won't need to. But the other thing, and I mentioned the 529 plans. You have someone who has young children. You start these on you have to have something in place for yourself. It could be term. It doesn't necessarily have to be one of these to start with. And then you put it on your child, and you grow this thing. They're the insured, but you own it. And by the time it comes to college, you could fund your college with that, or if they don't want to go to college, you could do something else. And as you know, 529 plans, you have to use them for some sort of educational thing. So there's just a tremendous amount of flexibility with these as well.
No, there are. I was asking because you never know. Like there are some people walking around with there are some parents that are walking around with no life insurance. Like that's the other, that's the other rub. You may not be able to use it as a financial vehicle, but I think just that kind of protection is important anyway.
Yeah, and there is some sort of, I forget what it's called, but there are people out there, I can't think of the term of it. You might remember from when you're studying for exams and stuff, where older people who have cash value and they don't care about it. Maybe they have plenty of money elsewhere. Maybe they have no kids. They'll actually sell the cash value of their policy to people who will pay them a certain amount of money, and then when they pass away, they'll take the death benefit. So
yes, I've heard of that. And every time I see those commercials, I think to myself, so just forget the kids.
Yeah, well, it's an asset. That's the thing people got to think about. Whole life insurance is an asset. The second you put it in place, there's a big death benefit, and then when you do it the way we show it, you create an asset that you can control, and it's a beautiful thing.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And so we want the people out there to start thinking of, to stop thinking of like you said, you need a mind shift, to not necessarily think about these things as just death benefits, but think of them as financial tools.
Right. And getting some leverage in your life. And, look, I know a lot of people love, his name's escaping me, the guy who's, he's a big podcaster. I'm blanking on him. Who teaches, who hates whole life. Dave Ramsey.
Oh, yes.
And I would say, and there's nothing wrong with, but he doesn't know this, obviously, or he wouldn't badmouth whole life so much. If someone takes the time to learn this, of course you might want to put it into your life. You may not, but at least it's worth looking at, because, you got to put some leverage in somehow or another, or it's hard to get ahead.
That's very true. So where can we contact you if we need to, if we want to avail ourselves of your services, if we want to follow you on social media, buy any books you might have? How would we do that?
Well, our website is www.privatebankingstrategies.com. And so they can go there, and the little window will pop up, and they can get the ebook. And I would just say, if you do that, that's great. And just, there's a little place you can put a note in there and just say that you heard it, on this podcast, on Melanie's podcast, just so we know that where it came from. It's just helpful to find out where people are coming to the website from. And they can certainly reach out to me directly. I could give you my email address.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, it's mhession64@gmail.com, MHESSION 64@gmail.com. And I'd be happy to, to get back to you, and we could have a conversation. I know my partner and I are looking to do regular webinars, informational webinars, and that kind of thing. And I've started to write articles that I put in LinkedIn. And, I just wrote one last week about the 529 plan and how this can be an alternative to that. So that's a great way to start.
Katina has been to your website, and one of my listeners who's always in the Facey chat, and she thinks that you really gave some good information. So I'm assuming that's why she went to your website, because I had already posted it a couple of times in the Facey chat.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's great. It's a learning process, but it's something we feel like everybody should know about. And Nelson Nash's mission was to get to where 10% of the population in the U.S. and Canada was practicing this for themselves, because then Wall Street would have to start changing what they do, and the government would have to start changing what they do, because all these people are doing it. They don't need banks anymore. They don't need, Wall Street anymore. So there's like a bigger goal in here too.
Nice. Very nice. Well, Thank you so much for being on the show. I hope you'll come back.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. That was Michael Hession. He was talking to us about privatized banking and how to become your own banker. Very interesting topic, especially if you've ever met with any type of financial advisor. That's like some he's on some advanced advising type stuff, because that's not the typical advice that you'll get from a financial advisor. From some, I've heard it before, but of course I'm in the industry. But so I hope that you guys found that information beneficial. Our second hour host is going to be Ken Honda. And he's going to talk to us about how to be happy with our money. He's going to talk to us about happy money. Specifically, he's going to talk to us about the Japanese art of making peace with your money. So I'm pretty excited about that. And he's coming to us right from Japan. So we're going to take one of our longer breaks, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday, from 7 to 9 a.m., right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics,
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
and all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m., here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
New show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating One's Preserve Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My second hour guest is Ken Honda, and I'm going to try to get in touch with him right now. All the way in Tokyo, Japan, is where I am calling him. So I thought I'd wait till. Typically, I get my guests while I'm on the commercial break, but I thought to myself, because I have to call all the way to Japan, let me go ahead and wait till the other side of the break, because I'm not sure how this is going to work out. This is live, but I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to work out, so I figured I wait until I was back on the air to give him a call. I'm really looking forward to talking to him. And Katina, I can totally relate, but apparently there is a way to do that, to make peace with your money. Oh, okay. Let's see. There is a way to do that. So I'm going to see if he's going to call in. Let's see. Okay. If he's going to call in, or if I'm going to be able to reach him. Okay. Let's see if I'm going to be able to reach him through the mechanism that I normally use, it all the way in Tokyo, Japan. So give me a minute or two to see if I can do that. And let me try to do it one more time. Having some technical difficulties here. Bear with me 1 second. Let me try it again. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Honda.
Hello, just call me Ken.
Hi,
Melanie,
Ken. Right? Yes, you're live on the air with Money Talk with Melanie. I decided to call you after the commercial break since I was calling all the way to Tokyo.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Great, yes. Yes, you're just almost like right next to me.
Oh, good. I'm so excited to talk to you. I announced what the topic was going to be a few minutes ago. I said that it's the Japanese art of making peace with your money was what we're going to discuss. And somebody in the Facebook chat, I stream live on Facebook, said, I need to make peace with my money. We've been at war for a minute. Her name is Katina. She's a regular listener to the show. So before we get into that, can you tell the audience a bit about your background?
Yes, my father was a very successful accountant, so I grew up learning about money from my father. He taught me everything I needed to know about money. And as I grew up, I became very interested in money, and I became an entrepreneur, which is kind of unusual for a Japanese man. And I made enough money so I could retire at the age 29. And for 4 years, I concentrated on changing diapers and just concentrated on the happiness of my family. But after about 3 years, I got this inspiration to write and teach other people about money IQ and money EQ, which is how to be happy with your money. And since then, I've written about 56 to 7 books and sold about 8 million copies in Japan. And Happy Money is my first English book that came out a few months ago, and we've sold almost about 170,000 copies worldwide.
Oh wow, that's terrific! And the name of the book, where can we get the book? It's called Happy Money: The Japanese Art of Making Peace with Your Money.
It's the cover is yellow and it's smiling at you, so you know it when you see it. It's everywhere actually. Major 150 airport bookstores in North America, and
I'm sure each bookstore carries a copy or like 5 or 10 copies. Yellow cover says Happy Money. So you won't miss it.
Excellent. Yep, it is. I'm going to put a link to your website in our Facebook chat so people can see it. And it is a very happy looking cover.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to make people feel happy even before they read it.
Yep, that's a good idea. So when you say happy money, what do you mean by that?
So, I was approached by a woman some years ago, and she said if I could show her my wallet. In those days, and somehow people are interested in looking at celebrities' wallet, if like a big one, small one. So I said, okay, as long as you give it back to me. And she took out the bills from my wallet and started counting or checking something. And she was saying, this is good, this is great. And I got really curious. And I asked her what you're doing. And she returned my wallet to me. And then she said, Ken, you're good to go. All your money was good. And I asked her, what's good about my money? She said, all your money was smiling in your wallet. That means you must have made somebody very happy and received money. On the other hand, if you're taking advantage of other people or doing what you don't like, your money could be crying in your wallet. And then, wow, that's very interesting. And since then, I've been thinking of money as energy. Money can laugh, smile, or cry. And I'm talking about sort of like a symbolically, but you know probably by listening to what I'm saying, oh, my money is half smiling, half crying, or just, they're angry in my wallet. So that's the idea.
My money's angry in my wallet. So the difference between, there's a contrast then that we need to draw. Like your money could be happy or your money could be unhappy. So just describe the difference.
Yeah. Happy money is money that we donate to charity, or 10-year-old boy buys a rose to his mother on her birthday or Mother's Day, or just love money that's given by your friend or grandparents or somebody you're very close, and you feel very, very touched and warm and so appreciated about the money you receive. Whereas unhappy money is that money that you receive from your ex-husband or your wife, very like ugly feeling. And then you feel like so bad when you spend money, like say you pay for the taxes or bills, like I don't want to pay for this money. So when you have this unhappy attitude toward money, that is unhappy money. And unfortunately, most of us live in the flow of unhappy money.
So every time we think of money, we think of it in a negative way, as in all these bills that we have to pay, or we associate something negative with the money.
Yes, that's correct. And unfortunately, most of us do without knowing. And since our childhood, so most of us have been doing this for years and years of negative conditioning that money is bad, money separates people, and all kind of things.
Yeah, I've heard that in general, that's not a good attitude to have in general towards your money. So if you want to invite more happy money into your life, how would you do that? How would you transfer that or change that attitude? Like, what if you do get alimony, but you associate it with something negative because it's associated with your ex-husband? Is there any way to change your attitude toward that money?
Yes. The very simple way I learned from my mentor, Wahei Takeda, who's called Warren Buffett of Japan. I had this opportunity to ask him, what is the secret of happy money? And he said, there's only one thing. That is, arigato your money. And I asked him, arigato your money? He said, when money comes into your life, you say arigato. And when money leaves you, once again, arigato. So when you receive this alimony, instead of being upset, you can appreciate him or her for just sending you the money, even though it's a legal binding money, but he or she sent it to you.
So you can receive with appreciation. I call it happy money cleansing or happy money laundry.
Now, I wonder if it works very similarly to the gratitude principles, which I think is I find to be a biblical principle, to be quite honest. But I think there's, what you...
Yes. Any religion would work with this because every religion focuses on appreciation or gratitude.
Exactly. Because I read an article the other day that talked about how gratitude for your good health. The essence of the article said this, that there's scientific proof that gratitude can make you healthier. Having an attitude of gratitude towards your health actually makes you healthier. And there's scientific proof because of what that does in your body, the endorphins or whatever hormones or whatever that it produces. Actually can literally make you healthier. So I guess the principle is very much the same.
Yes, and you don't need science to know that, if you're happy, you smile, and if you're smiling, you cannot be unhappy. So that's like everybody would feel the difference. So what I'm teaching is very simple Zen style way. When money comes into your life, just say or look at the money or look at the statement, a bank statement, and say, thank you, or danke, or say, whatever the language you choose, it doesn't really matter. Just feel this warm feeling, appreciation in your heart that, wow, somebody gave you this money. Because these days, since people don't want to pay, it's a miracle that you received the money. Your company could have chosen so many different people, but they chose you to work with them. And also your whatever the money comes, if you're a freelancer, they chose you out of so many competitors. So there are so many reasons to appreciate about money coming in.
Now, is it easier, I guess, to have that attitude when you are a wealthy person, or can poor people have a happy attitude toward money as well?
That's a very good question, Melanie. The beautiful thing about happy money is it doesn't really matter how much you have or how much you make when it comes to happy money, because it's about gratitude. I've done intensive studies on Japanese millionaires. I've done out of 12,000 millionaires. I've interviewed about a few hundred of them, and I realized that wealthy people, if they're not happy, even though they make more money, doesn't really matter. One time I sat down with a person and I asked him, do you feel wealthy? And he said, no, I have a public company, but I don't have a private jet. And that's his criteria. And he's not appreciative of money.
Wow. I mean, that's a serious lack of appreciation in my estimation.
Yeah. And some people are very happy if you have food on the table, roof on your top, above your head. But and also the other time I had this interview with a guy who had a private jet, and I asked him, "Do you feel wealthy?" And he said, "Not at all, because my private jet is very small. It seats only 6 people." So when he goes to his private jet with his Mercedes, all the other his friends, their jets are like 20 times bigger. They're just driving with Rolls Royce, so they feel he feels so small in among all these big private jets. So there's no limit to how much you have, and if you're not careful, you feel always this hunger to be more, to do more. So it's the shortcut to unhappiness.
Yeah, that sounds like it. So is there a way to how can I put this? Is there a way to does the way we feel about money, does it mess with us as far as whether or not we can make more, whether or not we can live in abundance? Mm-hmm. How does that work?
Mm-hmm. So there's this concept that I teach people, money container. We're born with the different kinds, different size of money container. some were born with big containers, like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Steve Jobs. They have a bigger container. And most of us are born with a smaller container. So you have to know which size container is. And at the same time, you have to figure out what kind of money is flowing into your life and then going out. Because if the money you receive is not happy, or the money you spend is not happy, as a result of these energies, you cannot feel happy. So you have to change the flow of the quality of the money. And also you have to change the quantity of money too. Because people cannot find happiness if you're making a minimum wage. So there's this practical side of money IQ in order to find satisfaction too.
That's for sure. That now there's this theory, particularly going on in the political climate here in the United States, that because rich people have so much money, that there isn't enough for everybody, and that the rich people should give to the poor. That's typically on one side of the aisle, where they have that theory, and so you have to take from the very, very wealthy to give to the poor or the middle class. Is that a myth, or is that true?
I think it's a myth. I don't want to go into political.
Well, no, not the political aspects, but
then in general, just think about communist countries like Russia or China. They used to be like no rich people, like everybody was equal. But once they introduced this commercialism or capitalism, not all the way, but look how many wealthy people are in China or Russia. They're more wealthy than most of the industrialist countries. And at the same time, some people who were born and brought up in China stay poor. Why is it? Because once again, there's this money IQ and EQ. So even if the government takes all the money from the rich people to the poor, in 10 years, they're going to end up being rich. They're going to end up being poor because of their attitude toward money. Now, so that's why a lot of multimillionaires, even they lose it all, they can get all the money back in a few years. So it's about the attitude. So even if you take money from the rich people, I don't think that solves a solution, because the poor people have a poor attitude toward money. That's why they can keep the money or increase the money.
That makes sense. I was just about to ask you a different question, and it popped out of my mind as quickly as it came in. So, what is the myth of scarcity that you described?
Yeah. So, what's interesting is that happy people feel like there's so much in the world, whereas unhappy people feel like there's so little. So it's a zero-sum game that if somebody wins, you lose. But happy, wealthy people feel like there's so much more. For example, I always use this metaphor in English that money is like water. When it's cold and icy, money becomes an ice, so it's hard to keep because it's cold. Your hands would freeze, and when water melts, the room temperature rises, the money becomes a flow. So it's like a river. But if it's a good amount of water, that's beautiful. But if it becomes a flood, like inheritance money or lottery money, too much money will flash people away. But if it's a drought, that's also another problem. Not much money flowing in your life is a problem. And what's interesting is that if money evaporates and becomes an air, people don't even notice they're there. For example, happy, wealthy people don't think about money on an everyday basis because somebody else is taking care of their finance, their accountant or butler or their secretary. So he or she doesn't have to think about money. It becomes an air. And so they breathe freely and they breathe out freely. And they don't even care if somebody just sits right next to you and breathes the air. Nobody complains like, don't So,
right.
Because it's everywhere.
That is very
That's
true.
the attitude.
That is very true.
And there are many opportunities out there to make money. So wealthy people feel like there is abundant opportunities, and they think like money is everywhere. There's so much money in the bank. You can't go there and rob a bank. It's not an intellectual way to do it. But if you come up with the right business plan and get the business going, you can get as much money as you want from a bank, because bank wants you to spend your money. That's your business. So you have to have certain intelligence, once again, money IQ and money EQ, to know to have a better life. I think, Melanie, you're doing such a great job, because you're helping people to raise what I call money IQ and money EQ. So that way, people can live a happy life without being restricted with money. And I think it's a great thing you're doing.
So describe the difference between or describe what a money IQ is and money EQ is, and maybe how we can obtain both. So what's a money IQ? How do you describe it?
The money IQ is mostly I learned from my father, financial intelligence. I'm going to talk on the same stage with Robert Kiyosaki in a few weeks in Tokyo. But Robert Kiyosaki focuses on money IQ, the money ROE, return on equity, and all the stocks and real estate and all the knowledge that you need to know about finance. And whereas money EQ is your emotional intelligence, how happy you are with money. So if you can, there are 4 rules. Appreciation. When money comes in, can you appreciate it or not? Can you trust the money flow? Can you receive well? And also, can you share well? So those are the financial EQ. If you are happy, you can share well your wealth. But if your financial EQ is low, you don't want to share anything. You hold on to your money.
Okay, so I got appreciation. Do you receive money well, and do you share your money? I missed one. You said there were 4.
Yeah. So appreciate, and also appreciate if you can appreciate money coming in, and also if you can trust the money flow.
Yes.
And also, appreciate. I just woke up, so.
No, you're okay.
I'll come back to that again later. Yeah.
Trust your money flow, and do you receive money well? Yeah. Do you share your money? So that's what it was. Go ahead.
Yes. Appreciate. Oh, okay. Appreciate. That's in Japanese. Receive well is that's the first one. So you have to receive well and also appreciate. So in Japanese, it's the same. Yeah. So receive well and appreciate. And trust and share. Those are the 4 rules. People are not good at receiving. That's one thing I teach. Because, we are so good at giving, but we're so bad at receiving. So receive well is the first law of money EQ. And it's the hardest part too. When money is being presented to you, you feel like, oh, no, I can't take it. Please keep it. So you feel awkward about receiving. So receiving well is the most important thing.
Oh, that makes sense. I was going to ask you what you meant by not receiving your money well. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you: is there a difference between how, like in your age, between how, say, an older person views money versus how kids view money?
Could you say it again?
I said, is there a difference between how kids view money versus how, say, an older person views money?
Oh, okay. Yes. You were breaking up a little.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. So people have different attitudes depending on the age. And when you're smaller, when you're a teenager, you always feel this hunger and thirst for money. Whereas older people tend to be more mellow about money, even though they tend to look at money as more security. So in your teenage, money is something that will make you look good. So you want money to attract your partner, potential partner. So the money becomes a different thing to different generations. And then if you get older, money becomes something for luxury. In your 30s and 40s, money becomes a necessity to raise your kids or pay for your aging parents. And in your 50s and 60s, money becomes a symbol of security. You feel more safe if money is around in your life. So money can become so many different things. Now, unless you heal this, what I call money wounds, you always worry about money, and that's not a healthy way of living.
Oh, that's not a healthy way of living. It's kind of like always worrying about your health. It's the very same thing. So listen, if we wanted to follow, are you on any social media or anything like that where we could follow your musings?
Yes. To protect my privacy, I was a mystery man until January of this year. But I started this social media this year. So I'm kind of slow, but you can find all the information at kenhonda.com. And if you Google Ken Honda, you have a lot of information in English. I'm translating a lot of courses and all that. I'm going to make them mostly free and available for anybody who wants to learn about happy money. So you can find my name, Ken Honda, as in a car.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Yes, it's been a lot of fun, Melanie.
Yes.
You're doing a great thing.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Listen, you have a fantastic weekend, and thank you so much for talking to us all the way from Tokyo, Japan. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. And everybody have a beautiful life. Don't be just bound by money. Just treat money as your friend. Money can help you and become happy.
Yes, thank you. Have a good one. You are listening
Thank you, Melanie.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You're listening
Bye-bye.
to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. That was Ken Honda, ladies and gentlemen, telling us how we could be happy with our money. And our first hour guest was Michael Hession, who told us how we could be our own banker, which was just excellent information. So I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I enjoyed doing it. I want to thank everybody who's listening in the Facey chat. And if you're listening via download of the podcast, I appreciate you so much as well. Remember, all of this is very important because after all, it's your money. Have a fantastic weekend.